Hey, Cubs fans, and welcome to a brand new edition of Cubs on Tap. Unfortunately, we're not talking about a fun one tonight. The Cubs lose 5-2 to the New York Mets in New York in game one of this series. Um, Not a lot of great things to talk about outside of the Patrick Wisdom and Anthony Rizzo home runs, but we're going to recap this thing anyway and take you through the game. So, for those that maybe didn't get a chance to watch, first 3.5 innings, nothing going for either side. Both pitchers getting the job done, but unfortunately, in the bottom of the fourth, Jake Arrieta ran into trouble. James McCann, he singled with Dominic Smith and Billy McKinney on. McKinney advanced the third on the plate. McCann advanced the second on the throw from Marisnik, which kind of got away from Wilson Contreras. But that RBI single drove in Smith and made it 1-0. And then later in the same inning, Kevin Pillar doubled. It was his fifth of the season to score both McCann and McKinney. And that unfortunately made it 3-0 Mets. And then later on, bottom of the fifth, Dominic Smith smacks his fifth home run of the season to dead center. 4-0 Mets there. Bottom of the sixth, they just continued to pour it on. It really didn't matter. Kevin Pillar scores on a Brandon Drury single. That made it 5-0. And it just didn't get much better. The top of the seventh, though, Cubs did show a little bit of life. Back-to-back home runs from Anthony Rizzo and Patrick Wisdom. Rizzo hits his 8th of the season, and Wisdom hit his 9th, which is good actually for the rookie lead, among all rookies in baseball. And it's crazy because Patrick Wisdom's done it in, I think it's like 75 at-bats less than the next guy, which is insane. So some good there, but unfortunately, Cubs just couldn't get anything going. And this felt like the one they needed to take. It really did, because you have arguably the worst pitcher of the series for the Mets on the mound in Peterson, who looked fantastic. I mean, his final stat line for the night was nothing to sneeze at. 6 hits, 1 run, or 1 hit, no runs, 2 walks, 3 Ks for him. He looked really good. He advances to 2-5 now in the season, only his second win of the year. And now you got to deal with, Walker, he's been good, but I feel like that's a guy they can probably beat up if they're going to beat up anybody in this series. But then you got to deal with DeGrom and Stroman on Wednesday and Thursday, and that's going to be a tough task even for this Cubs team who's been hot, obviously riding a 5-game win streak into tonight's game that unfortunately now ends with said loss. May was the only one that got beat up for the Mets tonight. His 2/3 of an inning is when he gave up the back-to-back home runs. His night was done after that, though. But Loop and then Diaz come in to shut the door. Loop gets his 9th hold of the season. Diaz, his 13th save as he strikes out the side in the 9th to get the Cubs down. And Jake Arrieta, I think that's a perfect place for us to start here and kind of begin to talk about, because Jake did not look great tonight. First inning, you heard David Ross, if you listen to the postgame show at all, he mentioned first inning wasn't great from Jake, but he was good enough, gets out of the inning, no damage done. Looked really good in the second and third inning. And even in part of the fourth, he started to look okay. Some pitches started to get away from him. Obviously, a big strikeout of Pete Alonso with that high kind of, sinker fastball that he has that he throws, or the two-seamer. That kind of functions as a sinker in a lot of ways. Gets them there. You're starting to think, they have hope. They have life. Maybe, just maybe, something can get going. And then unfortunately, nothing gets going because of Jake then giving up some unfortunate runs. And the Mets never looked back. Their pitchers did the job. Like I said, Peterson goes a strong 6. The Cubs did get to May, but that didn't matter because then Loop and Diaz shut the door. So Jake now 5-7 on the year after tonight's loss. His official line for the night: 5 innings, 4 hits, 4 runs, all earned, 4 walks and 3 Ks with a home run given up. His ERA is now 5.14 on the season, which is terribly unfortunate. And then Tommy Nance, this one sucks. This one just kind of added salt to the wound for tonight's game. 2/3 of an inning for him. He gives up a run and he walks 2. Really, probably his worst pitching performance of the season. Obviously, it's the first time he gave up a run all season. So now he has a sparkling .75 ERA for the year. But Rex Brothers comes in, walks 2, so pitches a full inning. But Meagle comes in and gets out of the Brothers' jam. And then Maples comes in, pitches a clean 8th. But obviously that didn't matter. So his ERA is now down to a 1.99, which is really interesting because, again, Dylan Maples, a guy that anybody that was following the Cubs on Tap account was discussed at length between some folks in the replies tonight. Just a guy that's been good, but he always gets used in low leverage situations. So you truly wonder, how good is he? Like where does that go? So that's something interesting too that we can dive into on this episode. But like I said, the first thing I really want to touch on is Jake Arrieta. Um, Again, coming off a really good start against San Diego, he looked really strong. Again, a road start. I know a lot of people on Twitter tonight, kind of slamming Jake for his home road splits. He's definitely worse on the road than he is at Wrigley. But again, looked really good against a very good Padres team. Just his last time out. Unfortunately, tonight, that fourth inning is what really killed him. And then the fifth inning ultimately sealed his fate with that Dominic Smith home run. So that really didn't matter in terms of that. But again, really bad location with the fastball and just really with every pitch tonight. Obviously, those 4 walks are indicative of that. When you walk as many guys as you give up hits, that shows you that the command's just not there. And only struck out 3. I don't really care if Jake strikes out a lot of guys at this point in his career, but as long as he keeps those walk numbers down and keeps guys off base and continues to strand guys, then I don't feel so bad. But unfortunately tonight, that's exactly what happened. And look who we have. We have a special guest. Hi, Cody.
What's up, man?
How's
it going? Hey, I wanted to slide in and say hello because we haven't got to talk recently, and
We have not.
We're live right now on Twitter, and if you're listening to the podcast version, you know that me and Ron haven't been on a show together. And I'll be quite frank, I missed most of the game tonight, but I did follow on my phone. But I wanted to slide in and just bring some positive vibes.
We could use that right now because this game is not a fun one to talk about.
Yeah, what? So Rizzo and Wisdom went back to back, and that's about it, right? I had Wisdom plus 350 to hit a homer tonight. Bang, bang. There you go. Love to see it. But yeah, this one sucks. But hey, can't win them all. We're good. Hopefully now, if we lose tomorrow with DeGrom on what is it? It would be Wednesday.
Yeah.
If we lose tomorrow with DeGrom on Wednesday, I think we can at least get a little frustrated. But hey, they won 5 in a row. Mm-hmm. I'm not getting too worried. I'm not getting worried at all, actually. This Mets team's actually good. So
true.
And the Cubs swept them at home. Is what it is. You knew the Mets were going to come out and really try to win this one. Cubs were underdogs today, if you look at it gambling wise, at least. But yeah, I don't know, man. How are you feeling though overall? Like, are you just kind of whatever?
I'm feeling okay. Yeah, I'm very whatever about this game. Unfortunately, I think my biggest thing, kind of where I was venting there with it, is just with Jake. I guess the inconsistency scares me a little bit lately. Obviously, I don't look too much into that start that he had in San Francisco when they found out he was sick and just didn't have it that day. I take that with a grain of salt. But again, I mean, he had a really good performance out in San Diego. So it gave me a lot of faith coming into tonight's game that he would look good.
He showed up when you absolutely needed him to.
Exactly.
And I feel like that's when Jake's going to show up for you, is when you really need him the most. The Cubs didn't need him the most to win tonight.
Right.
I hate to say it that way, but I mean, we've talked about it. Like, April was great, but I think Jake's going to be your 4 or 5 starter at the end of the year. He's going to going into the postseason. Who knows if he even gets a start in the first 3 games? Like,
right.
What we saw in April was, if we were like, if we get this, like, who knows where this team could be? Unfortunately, the rest of the Cubs offense was so bad in April, and then the rest of the Cubs pitching staff wasn't really there either, so it really stood out more. But I'm at the point with Jake that if you just give us 5 innings and you keep the Cubs in the game, I'm okay.
Yeah,
he gave up 5 runs tonight, so it sucks. But that's just where I'm at with the expectations, brother. Like, that's just where I am.
No, I'm there too. Like that was my biggest thing is, with Jake, I'm not so worried about like his strikeout numbers. I'm not worried. For me, it's the walks. I think that was the biggest thing, right? Like you said,
walk 2 in the first inning tonight, right?
Yeah. And then obviously he walks a couple too then in that dangerous 4th, which is where, the Mets did essentially 90% of their damage for this game. But, like you said, like as long as he can go 5 and just give you a good consistent outings. Like as long as he's keeping the walk numbers like 3 and under, because if he's only going to go 5, I mean, 3 walks is still pretty substantial for 5 innings. But if he can keep it to that range, sure, maybe you give up 5 or 6 hits, but as long as you can kind of strand guys, you're not giving up the extra base hit, you're not giving up the long ball. And even if he only strikes out 1 or 2 a game, I don't really care about his strikeout numbers. But like you said, as long as he gives you 5 and keeps them in the game, unfortunately, it just felt like the way Peterson was pitching tonight, as soon as that 4th inning happened, it was like, oh, shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because it just really, like, the Cubs couldn't get anything going. I mean, he only gave up 1 hit in 6 innings. So that's just kind of indicative of how he pitched tonight. And I think the reason tonight's game is a little weird, right? And I don't feel like I'm not worried. I'm not concerned. I'm just a little more like this one would have been nice to have because, like you mentioned, right now you go into tomorrow. Walker's been good, but a guy that I think this Cubs lineup could beat up, especially because he's a righty. So now you're going to see, some more of your normal bats in the lineup. Guys like Ian Happ, Jock Peterson should all be back in the lineup tomorrow. Mm-hmm. But then, like you said, Wednesday you got DeGrom, Thursday you got Stroman, and those two have just been pitching insane right now. So I think that's where the concern lies, right? Is now, okay, you're hoping you just don't get swept, right. or maybe you get to, maybe not necessarily so much DeGrom, but maybe you get to Stroman on a rare off night, and then maybe you can kind of go for a series split. Like, to me right now, after tonight's game, to me a success is a series split. I think that's very realistic, especially then because you come home, you got a Miami Marlins team that is decent, but they're not lighting the world on fire. And then hopefully you take advantage of that series because then, the schedule kind of starts to get a little strange now. You got the Brewers at the end of the month who I think, thank God, are losing to the Reds right now, which is obviously huge. That way
love to see it.
No change in the standings is always nice. But, it's just like you said, I'm not concerned by any means after tonight's game. It's just I'm not mad. I'm disappointed. That's kind of how tonight's game kind of felt. And especially too, like, then you look at, like, I think the added insult to injury, to be honest with you, is the Tommy Nance outing. Going 2/3, walking a couple guys, giving up his first run of the season. Like, it was bad enough when Jake was struggling. And then, like, that just adds to it. And you're just like, oh, it's just very
you knew Tommy Nance was going to give up a run or however many he gave up eventually. I don't know. I think my thinking is I came into the series hoping to split, and not even just because DeGrom and Stroman are a part of it. It's more of just you're going on the road. You already swept the Mets this year. They know that that's a thing, and they knew that they have to salvage the season series against the Cubs. So to go to split the series, I think would be a win for the Cubs. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the Cubs just beat Yu Darvish last week, man. Like they've beat DeGrom before. I think it's been a few years, but they beat him before. At least they beat the Mets the night that he pitched. It wasn't his fault that they lost. It's the fact that the Mets never score when he pitches. So that's in 2 nights. But like I think that, as long as you get a better starting pitching outing tomorrow and the next couple of days as well, and get the bats going, because again, you hit 2 solo homers, they ain't gonna get it done. The Cardinals did that over the weekend and they lost all 3. So you gotta get some guys on base, then hit the homer, or manufacture runs whatever way. But yeah, I guess I agree with you about Arrieta. I don't want to say it's alarming, it's just expected, and it's the whole Jake is back, like he, the beard and Jake Day and all that, like it's starting to wear off a little bit. Like it just is what it is, man. And it's no fault to him. I still love him. He's still my guy. He's still a guy that I'm going to be telling my kids about one day. He's just old and he just doesn't have the fastball anymore. And if he doesn't have that curveball or sinker going, then the cutter, like if he doesn't have that going, then it's just going to be it's just not going to be great. It's not great. Right. So if the fact that he got 5 tonight, I feel like we feel a lot different about the start if the Cubs are able to put more runs on the board earlier in the game. You know what I mean? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that's just how it is. And again, I didn't watch most of the game because I was busy, but like, again, I think when you think about the expectations for Jake as a Cubs fan in 2021, what else can you really say?
Yeah, so. And Scott from Iowa agrees with you. He says, "Well said, Cody." And I agree with you too.
Scott.
You know what I mean? Like he's definitely still a really good player, and or a guy that is still people are so fond of, right? Cubs fans.
Yeah,
I mean,
for
the
sure.
memories of that part of 13 when he comes over, and then part of 14 when he comes over, and then 15 obviously with the Cy Young, and 16 he was still really good, and even in 17 he was still really good, and then obviously he leaves, he comes back, and there's the hype around it, like you said. But again, like you said though, even if he is that like kind of fourth and fifth pitcher in the rotation kind of guy, right? Like you said, give us 5 and just keep the team in the game. That's all I care about. It's just the nights that this happens where like you didn't really keep them in the game. That's when you're like, damn, that's the only thing that sucks. And really, to me, it was the walks that was really what killed him. I think
for
4 hits you can get away with.
He didn't. I don't know if how many walks did he have against San Diego?
Only 1.
Only 1? Yeah, like I think that's the thing is the walks. Like if he doesn't walk people and eats innings, then no matter how many runs he gives up, I think you're at least getting the best effort you can get out of it without being, without thinking, oh, if this would have happened, whatever. Like, because the walks are really what make you think like, man, like he just didn't have it. And like, you can't really justify anything else. But if he doesn't walk people and, gives up 3 runs or less, then you're like, cool, great.
Yeah.
But I think that's all you. I think that's the expectation is 5 innings, 3 runs or less. I think I said that like a week or 2 ago.
Yeah.
And that was like right in the midst of his really like a stretch of like bad starts. He had like 6 starts of an ERA over 6 or something. So yeah, I mean it sucks. It is what it is, man. I will say that Jake, he's giving us if this is a spin zone, he's giving us exactly what I thought John Lester would give the Cubs.
Fair.
Like that's what I think what we're getting out of Jake this year is exactly what I got out of John Lester. Maybe a little bit better just because John Lester was so bad in 2020, and I haven't looked at his numbers with the Nationals lately. But I mean, the Nationals are probably selling in the next month, so I mean, there's the again, it sucks to say, but father time has reached for both of these guys almost, and I just try to enjoy what we can get out of them, especially when you don't have too much expectations. But I said earlier, Jake is a guy that, given the situation, when you need a big start, when your back's against the wall, what did he do against Yu Darvish? He went out there, fucking shoved against Padres. Again, the Cubs didn't exactly need a win tonight, but if he's in a situation, I think if you need a big start from him, if you need like 5 strong, I think he will show up for that because that's when experience comes to play. You know what I mean?
Right. That's when that grit and tenacity too that he's been so well known for.
Like that's not something you can measure with analytics or all that bullshit that people are talking about all the time. You know what I mean? Like he's just like that's the experience, the winning the championship, being in big games, big moments, winning Cy Young, like all of that comes back whenever you got a big game you need to win. Okay. Now that said, I'd still take Kyle Hendricks, Albert Alzolay, and probably even Zach Davies in like a playoff series before Jake Arrieta. But, say in the postseason, the Cubs are up 2-1 in a series, and then you got Jake Arrieta game 4. That's not a bad option to have when you're up 2-1 in a series. Right. I mean, this is just spitballing and we're in fucking June, but I don't know. Again, for everyone really disappointed about Jake and everything, I just think you need to lower your expectations a little bit. Like that's where I'm at.
Yeah,
so
I think
it also helped that I missed most of the game. So,
well, no, I mean, but I think that's fair because you see some of the good, right? Like he tonight struck out Pete Alonso on a high, 2-seam, sinker that he kind of throws, looked really good. Like that's a good pitch, that he got him to swing at. But then it's the walks, right? And I think that's what really kind of scares people. And quickly, just to note, because I did see the comment come through and I want to pull it up as well. 9 games so far this year for John Lester with the Nationals. He's 0-2 with a 4.09 ERA and 44 innings pitched with 29 strikeouts and a 148 whip. So Again, nothing spectacular. He was also out for a while too. I think that's what a lot of people forgot. He didn't pitch until I think the game against the Cubs was actually only like his third start of the season at that point. So
yeah, man. It is what it is. I like what Scott from Iowa was saying here in the comments. Short answer: Jake needs the beer snake vibe to get those extra couple miles per hour on the fastball. Hey, if that's gonna get it done, man, just make him do starts at home with the wind blowing in. Hopefully,
just structure his pitching schedule. Just every start is at Wrigley Field because he really is. He feels like such a different pitcher when he pitches at Wrigley, which is kind of funny. But kind of a serious question that I think is interesting too, because I think this kind of plays along the lines of what we were talking about here. BV on YouTube says, "Do y'all think the Cubs are in a similar spot as 18, 19, and 20? Good but not great."
I don't think so. This team is, like I've said it before, this team is so 2015. Like, no expectations. The only difference is we don't have a lot of players under contract after 2021. We've talked about that in depth, but the vibe is very 2015. It's very, hey, we're here, we're a team, we exist, we're good. If you didn't hear about it, we're good. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's probably the most similar thing about him, but obviously with contracts, extensions, we don't know where the Cubs are going to be past July, past 2021. He also he came back and said, so will they win a playoff series? If this team stands back and maybe adds a guy like Kyle Gibson, or if go all in on a Max Scherzer or something, in my opinion, I think that this team could win a playoff series. Yeah, I do think that. They have the offense that's doing it. They have the bullpen that we've talked about it in depth over the for years, and not even just us, but like all of sports media has talked about how the best bullpens have like taken teams over the top in the postseason. We saw it from the 18 Brewers. We saw it from the Rays last year. They lost in the World Series because they let analytics define what they're going to do in a pivotal game, but their bullpen really carried them to the World Series. Brewers got the NLCS, whatever. The reason the Brewers didn't get the World Series is because they're a small market team that doesn't know how to develop any offense outside of fucking Christian Yelich. But yeah, I just think that I think this team could win a playoff series if they stand pat and fucking maybe add a pitcher or depth piece, whatever. Yeah. Hell yeah. This team's winning games, and they don't have Nico Horner right now. That guy was fucking raking for the Cubs. No Matt Duffy, our fucking starting rotation that lost a Cy Young caliber ace, is doing as good as it has. No one thought it'd be this. I mean, the biggest thing you can complain is it just doesn't have a fucking. They're not getting you the length, But yeah, this team fucks right now, guys. Fuck.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you, and just quickly, I'll pull up the comments kind of in response to your answer there, Cody. BB says vibes are different. I agree. Just feels like the end results will be similar. Mentions the pitching development would be the biggest supporter of that. Yes, Matt Duffy is our god. We do love Matt Duffy here at Cubs on Tap. And then Scott from Iowa. We have slept 5 playoff teams. Hell yeah, we can win a playoff series. And I agree. I think at full health, which I think a lot of people forget, like you said, the Cubs are very hurt right now. Like they're missing a lot of guys that have had big seasons. Nico Horner and Duffy, that like you mentioned, just to name a few. Bodie. But like now Rizzo's starting to get hot, which is huge. I mean, obviously Patrick Wisdom's been Patrick Wisdom, which is hilarious. Chris Bryant, I mean, is still having an incredible season. There's a reason that he's number 1 in the All-Star voting right now for third base in the NL. And then I agree, like, to me, the guy I would like to see the Cubs add, if they're going to add a starting pitcher, is Jose Barrios from the Twins. I think he's a guy that, just because he plays in Minnesota, a lot of people don't talk about him, but he is very good. And when he's on, that's a type of guy that, especially right now in this starting rotation, he's for sure your number 2 and probably your borderline number 1. Only guy, obviously, to me, he competes with is Kyle Hendricks. But I mean, I would feel pretty good if you told me, hey, you got a 7-game series and your first 4 starters are Barrios, Hendricks, Davies, and Elsley. With the way they've been pitching, especially lately, like Davies looks really good lately. The month of May, he was sensational, and even in June now, he's been good. Yeah,
in June, you're finally getting the length that you need. Like his start on Sunday, I was there, man. He was phenomenal. Only gave up one hit, and I don't even think he walked anyone. It was by far and away his best start of the year. To follow up what was his best start of the year before that in San Diego and a big game the Cubs needed. Yeah. Hell yeah. Like, I'm starting to feel a lot better about him and that situation. So that's, I mean, it doesn't make you think, okay, it's Kyle Hendricks, Albert Alzolay, and then him. So
right. Yeah, and I think they can get it done. I think the real key is, you know, when you get to the playoffs, anything can happen. I think last year is a perfect example of that. The Cubs were heavy favorites against the Marlins, and the Marlins took care of them in 2 games in the play-in series. Like, anything can happen in the postseason. We see it year in and year out. You're never a shoe-in guarantee just because you're a 1 seed going into the playoffs. Sure. And like Scott from Iowa said, like tonight about too, right? Tonight was 80% of the starting lineup for the Iowa Cubs. I mean, that's, you know, but again, because they're hurt. And, you know, and like, Joe, do you remember what it's like to lose? That's a good question. And that's something, too, that I actually thought about, you know, briefly.
We've been winning so many games, man.
Well, so many games. And you go from that electric atmosphere of Wrigley this weekend. You have to get on a flight. You travel to New York, and you're playing the Mets in New York, where I don't know if they're back at full capacity yet, first off. Second off, obviously, you're not going to be all Cubs fans. There were a decent amount of Cubs fans there, but still. So, like, you go from such a big swing that, like, it feels like naturally the energy levels are going to be down.
Do you know what the Cubs record on the road is? Like, I know they've had moments where they struggled. Obviously, they struggled in San Francisco this month.
Yeah. Coming into tonight, I believe it was 14-17. I believe now they're 14-17.
So you're like, at the end of the year, most teams that make the playoffs, they're about 500 on the road, and then just like well over 500, obviously, at home. So if you can stick around 500 on the road, you know, you'll be all right.
Right. As long as you take care of business at home. And that's, I mean, so far that's what the Cubs have been doing. I mean, they've been very hard to beat at home. We talked about it. I talked about it on last night's podcast after this week. They've swept the Cardinals, the Padres, the Mets, and the Dodgers all at home this season. Yeah. I do like this comment from Joe that he and you made a video yesterday after the game that will not have the opportunity to see the light of day. Lots of
I'm sure. Yeah. So me and Joe met up on Clark Street last night. Right outside Demos, and I think it's Roadhouse 66, I think is what it's called. And there was like these 2 Cubs fans. They had brooms because the Cubs swept the Cardinals. They were just hanging out. They legit had brooms with them, and every time, because Clark Street was closed down from cars, people just walking down the street.
Right.
Every time Cardinals fans were walking down, these guys were like sweeping, like just like going up and like sweeping up their feet or whatever. I will, as much as I hate St. Louis and I hate Cardinals fans, I'll admit that the Cardinals fans, they took their L, you know, and they were just like, whatever. I don't know if it would have been the other way around, if any Cubs fans would have been okay with that. I probably would have got super pissed off because Cardinals fans are the bane of my existence. But there were also a large amount of the 11 Rings crowd too, which is just the little brother version of Yankees fans, but whatever. All that said, we did like a video. My girlfriend like recorded a video of me and Joe, and like I'm just like yelling into the camera, and then Joe's just like kind of talking kind of like not softly, but like just not anywhere near the energy that I was at. And then I also had like pizza crust in my mouth the entire time because I was eating pizza. It was just the internet's never going to see it. I'm not.
That's okay. That's a video I personally would like to see, though. I would just.
All right. I'll show you next time I see you or whatever. Beautiful. I'll show it to you.
Yes, I would love to see that video because I'm sure that's absolutely electric. Yeah. Well, man, I don't know about you. I mean, if you don't have anything more to say about tonight's game, I really don't. This one was just kind of a snoozer. It was unfortunate. It was a very low action game in terms of the Cubs. Obviously, the back-to-back home runs were nice, but it was kind of day late and dollar short at that point. So I'm ready to go ahead and look forward to tomorrow and put this one in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, man, let's do it because we got to get the vibes back up. I mean, that's just how I feel about this team right now. You lose once, all right, we'll bounce back. Even during the Giants series, was tough and freaking got beat by a bunch of no names you never heard of, and it was annoying. But you know, the way they bounced back in that San Diego series just has me like so all in on this team, and I genuinely I'm not worried about a lot of stuff right now. And that's not something I've been able to say for a long time about, previous Cubs teams from the last couple of years. So I think that's a good way to go into tomorrow's game.
Absolutely. And Joe does confirm that you were at a 10 and he was at a 5. So would just like to make that known heading into our preview.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate
that. I can't wait to see that video whenever that time comes. But as you mentioned, Cody, we are going to look ahead. We are going to move forward. Put this one in the rearview mirror because the Cubs are back in action at Citi Field again against these same Mets at 6:10 Central Daylight Time. The usual suspects once again for both markets: 670 The Score, Marquee Sports Network in Chicago, WCBS 880, WQBU 92.7, Sports New York for New York, and then ESPN will be housing the game for out of market only. According to MLB.com, the Cubs are trotting out Alec Mills. Excuse me. He's 2-0 on the year, 6.08 ERA. And 15 Ks. He did return from the IL stint recently, came out of the pen late against, I believe it was the Cardinals, no? Right? I'm not losing my total shit, am I? I feel like... Yeah. No, it was the Cardinals, I think.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was. I don't know. The days all bleed together now, but Alec Mills, he's back. He's starting again. So he starts tomorrow. And then for the Mets, as we've mentioned earlier in the show, Taijuan Walker, he's 5-2, 2.07 ERA and 60 Ks. This is the big thing. He has periodic control problems, and that's what I am hoping the Cubs can take advantage of. But Cody, I would love to hear from you regarding tomorrow's game before we go ahead and get out of here.
Well, Alec Mills, I hate to point it out, but at one time, someone who is not part of On Tap Sportsnet anymore said that Alec Mills should be a starter over Adbert Alzolay. And that did not age well, so I'd like to point that out. But at the same time, he did throw a no-hitter last year. I know he was on the IL. And his role in the bullpen was kind of shaky, in my personal opinion. So
fair.
I don't really know how to feel about Alec Mills going into this game. I'm hoping he feeds us 5 innings and is good. That's what I'm hoping. But I do know I don't know if he's had another appearance, but he came back from the IL or came back from Iowa, whatever, and he pitched the 9th inning. He struggled like the first 2-3 batters. I think he walked a couple guys. He ended up giving up a run, but if the Cubs were blowing out whoever it was, and they won the game. Mm-hmm. Hopefully he got the rust off, and this will be a nice momentum builder for him moving forward. Because if you can if he shows good signs tomorrow, and then Trevor Williams or Adbert Alzolay come back, whoever, I don't know what they're going to do with Mills, but if he gives you a good start tomorrow, you feel good about putting him back in the bullpen and using him in different situations. Hell, if he's so good, maybe you could leave him in the rotation. I don't fucking go 6 people. I don't know, man. I don't really know Alec Mills' role on this team at this point, and a large part of it is just because he's been out he was out for like a month. He missed like the entire month of May. So I don't really know what to really think about him. Yeah, to be honest with you.
No, that's fair. I think that's kind of how I feel about this one rolling into tomorrow's game, because he, like you said, his role in the bullpen has kind of been shaky. Obviously, he hasn't pitched in a month. If I remember correctly, now it was that San Diego game 2 that he came in and gave up the 1 run late because it didn't matter. The Cubs were already up 7-0. So I believe it was that game. But I mean, yeah, if he comes in and looks like anything like he did as a starter in 2020, like you said, 5 innings is the minimum that I would ask for. 6 would be lovely. Anything beyond that's absolutely cake at that point. And, just keep the Cubs in the game. Walker's going to probably strike out a lot of guys, but if the Cubs can get him, if he has a couple of, control problems and Mills just limits damage, again, against a very underwhelming New York Mets offense, if we're being entirely honest. So I think that Cubs have a good opportunity tomorrow. I think as long as we get a good outing out of Mills, and the Cubs can at least get to Walker for a few runs, or maybe chase him early, run up that pitch count at least, and then you try to get to this bullpen and see if you can bang up that bullpen a little bit. I think that would absolutely be huge. So Cody, besides Andrew Chafin, do you have another Fly the W pick in mind?
I kind of like what Scott's saying in the comments. He says Bryant has to be due for a big game. I was kind of thinking that last night. Bryant he was kind of cold over the weekend. The road trip, he had that huge home run in San Francisco, and ever since then, I don't think he's hit a homer. He's gotten hits, but I don't know if he's had any extra base hits in a while either. It's tough to say because he's been so good. And you look at the slash line, and you're like, that's good. That's what you want. But his slugging percentage has gone down below 600, and he's now batting under 300. And it's like, oh God, he's starting to trend down. Well, it's like, okay, you can't play out like lights out of your mind for an entire season. So yeah, I'm gonna roll with what Scott's got here. Maybe KB's due tomorrow. I don't know what his career numbers are against Walker, but I do know he played very well against the Mets back in April. So, hopefully maybe KB gets a start for the Cubs tomorrow. Maybe I assume Jock Peterson will lead off tomorrow. Maybe gets a nice little walk, or maybe a little bloop and a bomb to start the game. That'll set the tone. That'll get positive vibes going. That's how I'd like to start the game tomorrow. Instead of 1-0, let's start at 2-0 with Chris Bryant hitting a bomb out after a Jock Peterson knock.
Yeah, I like the sound of that too. And KB, in the course of his career, only one guy in this roster has seen Walker more than 4 times. But KB is 2 for 4 with an RBI against Walker. So not terrible. 500 against anybody is obviously good. But ironically, my Fly the W pick is the man that you mentioned getting on ahead of KB, because in 16 at-bats, Jock Peterson is batting .375 with a home run and 2 RBIs against Walker in his career. And don't let Jock get hot. And people they did it. They let Jock get hot.
Say he's been hot, brother.
They let him get hot. I told people not to let Jock get hot, and he's gotten hot. I'm gonna ride with Jock Peterson.
Oh yeah, Jock Peterson is a fucking vibe, my friend. When I was out in the left field bleachers on Friday, watching that guy fucking run the bases after hitting a homer, come run out to the outfield after hitting the homer, like this guy was just vibing out with the left field bleacher fam. Like maybe it's because I hadn't sit in the bleachers in a really long time, but like I think that was the day that Jock Peterson won me over as a guy that I want to keep beyond the 2021 season. I think that day was the day that won me over. And he had a good day. He went 3 for 4. And he's been really good outside of last night. He had like he went 3 days with a home run, 3 straight days with a home run. Didn't hit a home run yesterday. He didn't play tonight, correct?
Nope.
No. So yeah, let's get it going tomorrow. The sky's been like the big part we talked about in Skies Falling tonight. That'll be out tomorrow as well with Cubs on Tap. Jock Peterson has been like the catalyst, I feel like, with this offense. People are like talking about how consistent it's been and, so much fun to watch. It's like, fuck, they're getting production out of the leadoff spot consistently. The Cubs are getting production out of the leadoff spot over the last 3-4 years most of the time, but it was never consistent because you never had the same person because there wasn't someone who you could consistently leave there. Right. Ian Happ, okay, didn't get the shot until late last year. Of course, you put him there and he starts to struggle at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. Before that, Chris Bryant, he struggled, but he struggled all of 2020. I don't know if that would have worked again. Rizzo might be the only other person, but you don't want to put Rizzo in the leadoff spot.
Right.
And then, we tried Schwarber. We tried so many guys, man. We just didn't get consistent production. Jock Peterson is giving you consistent production, quality at bats out of the leadoff spot, and it's absolutely beautiful. I fucking love it. It makes me feel a lot better about losing Schwarber and seeing him go and, had a 2-homer game on Sunday, whatever. I don't even care. It doesn't even bother me because Jock Peterson is having a hell of a season after that slow April.
Yeah, he really is. Ever since he came back from that IL stint, he's been a very different player. And, Yeah, if he continues to ride, it's been nice. Every time he's been in the lineup as that leadoff hitter, it really feels like he's been kind of that spark plug for this lineup, and just at least a good at bat usually to start the game, and that usually can set the tone then for the rest of the lineup. And then obviously when he's hitting dingers at the clip that he's been hitting them lately, that's always a nice thing to see as well. Well, sir, I do want to remind everybody before we get out of here, Cubs on Tap is the official Cubs podcast of the On Tap Sports Network. You can go ahead and check out all of our great work at www.ontapsportsnet.com and at OnTapSportsNet on social media. You can follow the pod-specific accounts. That is at Cubbies, Cubbies, on tap on both Twitter and Instagram. I am at Loose on Tap on Twitter. Cody is at Cody on Tap on Twitter. You can follow both of us there as well. Don't forget about guys like at Juice on Tap, at Joe Maris, and so many more. And once again, not only do we have great Cubs coverage, Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, you name it. And yeah, Cubs fans, we all have friends that are White Sox fans. You bring them over too. The Sox on Tap guys do a great job. So once again, www.ontapsportsnet.com and at OnTapSportsNet on social media, the OnTap Sports Network. Go ahead and check out what's on tap in Chicago sports. Well, Cody, appreciate you sliding in, buddy. This was fun. It was good to talk to you again. It's been a hot minute since you and I got to be on a show together. Unfortunately, we weren't talking about a win, but nonetheless, man, it's always a pleasure.
Yeah, I just wanted to slide in and hang out with you because we hadn't been able to talk really over the last week. The goddamn West Coast trip, man. Never again. Hopefully, I was on one show last week. One show that had to be like the lowest in a really long time for me. So, thank God we get some 6 o'clock starts instead of 9 p.m. starts.
Thanks.
This entire week and then back to Wrigley for the weekend. Yeah, like I kind of said, man, like just positive vibes. Let's bounce back tomorrow. Let's start a new streak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to end it, man.
It sure is. A win tomorrow cures a lot of things, buddy. So I'm right there with you. We'll keep the good vibes going, and let's get out of here the only way we know how, man. Let's go Cubbies.
Let's go.